it's the URC's grand final, the big final this weekend. Leinster against the Bulls in Dublin. Leinster are obviously overwhelming favourites. They at home in Croke Park and they have home ground advantage. Didn't have to travel, lots of things like that. But the Bulls have got a chance, and I think just to discuss the final a bit, I thought let me invite somebody who knows both sides quite well, who studies them, and who's had the pleasure of playing both sides in the recent past. The Bulls as recently as last week, an old friend of mine, Joey Mongalo. Joey, I'll introduce you as the defense coach of the Hollywood Bet Sharks. But you're also a former SA under-20 assistant coach. You've coached at the Bulls, you coached at the Lions. Maybe if there's if there's anything I've forgotten, fill us in quickly.
No, I think you've nailed everything. I think you also mentioned that we are friends. We've known each other for a long time, Brendan. I think it's from the times when I was trying to play fullback for Pretoria Boys High and junior rugby for the Bulls as well. So we've known each other for almost 3 decades now. But yeah, I think that's enough on-field stuff. Off-field, obviously, I take pride in my master's degree in industrial psychology and the work that I'm doing there with workplaces. But I think you've had a great intro. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, looking, Joe, you've obviously studied both of these sides. You've had to play them during the season. You had to play the Bulls last week in that epic semi-final where you guys came up just short. And I know, as I said just before we started recording, you probably didn't want the season to end this early. But generally, I think let's start with going to Dublin. I don't think people understand sometimes how difficult it is to move a group of 50 odd players and coaches and staff around in a week where everything is so compacted. It's the end of the season, so you can't do much training anyway. Your game plan should be sort of sorted out, but just to manage those little things that give you that 0.5% advantage going in. How difficult is it traveling to a place like Dublin?
Yeah, I think, Brennan, if you'll take it, the pro athlete wants to be ready, body, mind, and spirit. So you can think spirit, the Bulls would have been on a high having won that semi-final against us. And obviously everything I say about them, and the Leinster, I say with a pinch of salt because they are in a final and we're sitting here at home, you know. So I just want to put that out there. So I think on the spirit side, the Bulls will be on a massive high, having won that game because it was a tough game. It wasn't an easy one. So character-wise, they felt like they got through two difficult games against Edinburgh and then against us. So that spiritual, emotional side, I think will be in a good space. The physical side is anytime you play against a team like the Sharks, is that it's a physical game. So obviously, the guys will tell you what you want to do to recover is recover through sleep and diet. So if you've had to travel, I think they traveled the Sunday afternoon already. So imagine the sleep levels weren't that high. The diet might be nice because if they travel business class, which I think they will do, they can
Yeah.
probably get their bodies to recover. But then the technical side will be very difficult. They'll probably arrive there on Monday. Tuesday's a recovery day. So literally they might have one day to walk through a couple of things and then run it at captain's run. So as you said, yes, your game plan is already in place, but you also have to do specific things for an opposition like Leinster. So you probably need a day or two to train a couple of special players that you've prepped for them. So I would say, again, in summary, I think the spirit is good. The body will take time to recover, and then the mind is probably one thing that's the one area where you can grow a lot. I think how you grow belief from when you get on the plane all the way to the other side, I think is an area where the Bulls can probably lean on that area, aspect. And I think Hanekum is with them, obviously, and he's a rock star in that space, so he should help them.
Yeah, and I mean, I think people underestimate at times. It's maybe not like it was in the past, with test matches where the whole city comes to a standstill. But Dublin is the type of place where people will be talking rugby, people will be talking about Leinster. Obviously, given their history and not making a final until now, since the URC started. Those sort of influences, sort of off the field, with people you bump into in coffee shops. And I know the players don't like to be in a hotel quite a bit, but just those influences and how that makes a difference in the build up to a game.
Yeah, I must say, Brennan, especially the Irish fans, they're really in tune with the game, not just as supporters, but I think they read up a lot about the game. They know their stats, they know their detail, and they also like I think Jock mentioned his last interview, Jock Ninabe said they like a crack, so they like to have a couple of chirps. So they'll definitely walk in the streets and they'll hear somebody telling them about something related to the game to try get a reaction out of them. They do it in a good sporting way, but it is something that they've got to consider. And I would say now with a more educated informed Dublin around rugby, and also them knowing that they've had a couple of playoffs in that part of the world and having not getting over the line. I think they'll be a bit nervous with their chips as well, understanding that there's an unsaid pressure going into that game that's probably more lying on the Leinster side than what it is on the Bull side. I think the Bull side, the pressure is there because you back yourself to get to the final, you want to win it. But I think if you took it on expectations, most of the world is expecting Leinster to win. So sometimes it's nice heading into a final knowing that you're firmly in the underdog seat, but sometimes that's a powerful seat to be in.
Yeah, and combined, I suppose, with the fact that the Bulls' record against Leinster, and yeah, there's an asterisk there. It hasn't always been Leinster's top side, but in the two semi-finals they played against them, they both won both semi-finals. Yeah, this is a final. It's different. There's different atmosphere. There's a different pressure that comes with the final. But yeah, that with Leinster's own record over the last 4 years in playoffs, yeah, certainly gives the Bulls an outside chance. And as you say, Leinster are favourites, but that's something the Bulls will quite enjoy and cling on to, I suppose.
Definitely. I think you've got a lot of the Bulls themselves. If you think the 2022 campaign losing to the Stormers in the final there, I think the halftime score was 10-3 to the Bulls, and then that final we end up losing 13-18. So it's people who've been there and tasted having lost also the playoff to Glasgow, the final to Glasgow the previous year. So the Bulls are, it's not two dissimilar seats that they're sitting in. I think the point of difference is who's got the home ground advantage. So I think both camps are feeling the pressure of, hey, we've been here before this part of the thing, we haven't gotten over the line. So I think that is very similar. The pressure probably mounts a bit more on the other side. I think if you look at the salary cap that the guys have got in Leinster, they've got most of the Irish international. So I think the pressure just sways more their side, and the Bulls will be quietly confident that with their third experience, not just of playing Leinster in a playoff, but playing in their third final, they're not going on hearsay or psychological things of what it might feel like. They know exactly what it'll feel like. So that hopefully for them on their side, they can draw on those experiences to help them probably get a favorable result if they, yeah.
We spoke to Willie LaRue yesterday, and obviously senior players, as you'll say that anyway, that senior players play a huge part in these big games, just in terms of calmness and making sure players understand their roles and that sort of thing. But the one thing he said, which I found quite interesting, because I asked him, I said, "What do you say?" Because the nerves will come. The nerves are always in front of big games. They will be there. And there's a lot of youngsters in the Bulls side as well that maybe haven't played in a place like Croke Park. In fact, well, Leinster haven't played there much either. But yeah, it's a big stadium. It's obviously got quite a history behind it as well. And he sort of pointed out. He said all he would say to them is just remember, there's no difference to your first game in the URC. Because it's just 18 minutes out in the field. You didn't get here by going into your shell. You take chances, get in those fights. You're going to lose some, but you're going to win some as well, and that's where you stay into it. It's an easiest. I don't know. It's an easy thing for somebody like Vili, who's obviously got 98 tests behind his name and probably has seen it all. But how do players stay calm in these sort of things, especially the youngsters? I mean, it differs from player to player, I'm sure.
Yep. Yeah, and I would say there's a couple of things, Brendan. I think one, I think Vili is right, and I'll try qualify the statement. Is one, a lot of these players have got like a really good match routine. So irrespective of where they're playing, who they're playing against, they've got a routine. And once you start getting into your routine, psychologically, you're in a good space. Secondly, is the lead up to the games, walking out onto the, listening to the crowd. I think the first 10, 20 minutes, your mind can be in the occasion because it's like you said, it's a massive stadium. You're playing against a massive team, and there's a whole lot of these factors going. But I think once you've made your first tackle, your first carry, your first clean, there's a sense that it's rugby all over again. And that's why I think the senior players in each group are able to help the youngster to remind them of that truth. You say, hey, you've done it. You've just caught another high ball. You've just made another tackle. Now it's just another game. So I would say for the youngsters, where they're most vulnerable is those first 10 to 15 minutes, because then you could still be thinking about being there and not fully engrossing yourself in the occasion, where the senior player without an interaction can already get himself in that space of, okay, I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm supposed to do, how I'm going to do it. So I think that influence that you say of senior players leading up to the game and in the game is massive for the younger guys.
Yeah, I was going to say, because those first 10, 15 minutes are going to be crucial this weekend anyway. I think in most finals they are. But especially with a team like Leinster, who who are able to do the not just score against you and get a fast start. They're the type of team that can do the combination blows. They can score 3 tries in 5 minutes, and you'd be 20 points behind and playing catch up the rest of the game. And that's more or less what happened to Glasgow in the semi final as well. So those are going to be hugely important for the Bulls to make sure that they're in the fight after the first 15 minutes as well.
For sure. And a funny statistic, because obviously we just played the Bulls now, is they score most of their points the first 20 minutes of the game and the first 10 after halftime. So obviously the Bulls are also a team that prides themselves in starting well. So I think it'll be
Mm.
an interesting duel in those first couple of minutes. And I think, as you've said it now, is probably teams are looking to take their points in a game like that. So your ability to exit off your kickoff receives will determine whether you can keep momentum in the game or you give momentum away, which allows the other team back in. So just as important as it is for them, both teams to score early, I think their ability to receive kickoff and exit well and defend well on the back of that will say a lot of where the momentum swings to in those first 20.
Let's move on to defense, which is obviously your speciality now at the Sharks. And you were also defense coach for Jake for a while there at the Bulls. How's their defense changed, the Bulls, since you've left with Jean Tit, who's obviously a very young, exciting young defense coach coming in? How's their system changed for you? And what's good and what's bad about it?
Again, like I said, pinch of salt because we're sitting here and they're in Dublin.
No, fair enough.
Is yes. I think I left it 2022 after the URC final. So between then, I think Jake did the defense a bit himself. Then Pine Pinard did it, and now it's
Gary
Jean. So
Gold.
they've had three
Yeah,
coaches since I've left. So
yeah.
there would have been definitely little nuances that have changed there. But I think probably one of the strengths for me is their ability to stay in the fight in the tackles. I think they really make your attack breakdown quite a bit of a mess, and they've got guys who are good on the ground and in the tackle situations. I would say the biggest attribute that I see in them is their ability to slow down the attacking team's rhythm. So obviously that's something that Leinster will know about. So I would say a big determinant factor of how they defend on Saturday will be based on the quality of ball that Leinster get consistently. If they get no rhythm, slow ball, then the Bulls have got a really good chance. But if they stay on top of you, which is what they want to do, then they're very hard to stop.
Yeah, there was a lot said, obviously, about the defense against you guys, especially before halftime there, and maybe some of the criticism for the Sharks is not your role, but is that maybe the Sharks should have played a bit more wide in those minutes before halftime where you're on the Bulls line. But that was some superb defense with 12, 13 men at a time. That's got to give a team a boost going into a final.
No, I agree with you. And I want to say I agree with you. I agree with you on what they put out there. I think they definitely put their bodies on the line. They really fought, which obviously helps because you're at home as well. You know, when you've got
Mm.
50, 60,000 people willing you not to let somebody score, that definitely takes your effort to the next level. And as we spoke earlier about that body, mind, and spirit, I think their spirits would be super high in confidence of what they can do when they really want to front up on the line, which they will do. Leinster will give them many opportunities to show what they can do on their own try line. So that'll be an interesting contest. But like you said, it'll be massive for their confidence, the fact that they were able to get it right this past weekend.
Looking at Leinster, I mean, Jacques Nienaber needs no introduction. We all know him in South Africa. We all know what a guru he is on defense, and what how detail plays a huge role in every single thing he does. How do you see the defensive battle going for both sides this weekend? Where are the key elements for you?
Yeah, I would say I just want to agree with you and just take a second to honor Jock. I think he is a phenomenal person, a great coach, and a very devout coach. If, like I said, the amount of time he spends in front of the computer is second to none. And why I've got a lot of respect for him, Brennan, is that he's the one who started the slow line speed originally, just have numbers on your feet, and now how he um, changed all of that to be a massive line speed team, which we're trying to be as well as the Bulls. I mean, at the Sharks. So it takes a lot for a man to be that good at his craft, to do two sides of defense and do them well and win with either. So I think just a second to honor him for that. Is that the defensive battle, if you look at the way the Bulls played against us, they kicked a heck of a lot, Brendan. They kicked early.
Mm,
So it's likely that they would probably go to something similar because to play through Leinster is very tough. I think if you can count on your hand this year, the amount of teams that got success. Yes, Northampton Saints found a way to pick them off, and here and there, a team or two might have one or two moments in the game to pick them off, but they don't give you many. So I would
Yeah.
say it's that whole thing about taking opportunities where they come. So I think what's interesting for me is not the original defensive effort. It's after the kick happens, who gets that ball back and which team defends best after that. So to summarize, I would say it's going to be an interesting to see which team defends the best in the transitions, because I think both teams will get transitions, and then it's the response of the attack and the defense. I mean, if you look at the Leinster as well, they kicked quite a few contestables in opposition half last week against Glasgow. So I think both teams are going on with a similar type of plan. Again, sorry to repeat the third time. So I think whichever team defends the best in the transition moments on the back of those kicks might be the one that lifts the trophy.
Yeah, and that's where a guy like Kanan Moody and Johan Goosen's boot's going to be huge for the Bulls. There's been a lot of talk about Sam Prendergast in the Irish media, whether he should start, whether they should go with one of the Burns. Where who's going to? Do you see any changes? I mean, both teams probably pretty similar, barring injuries now. To what they played in the semi-final. Do you see any other changes that they might make?
No, I think if you take it back to the beginning of our conversation, especially the Bulls, with such a short turnaround time, it's unlikely that you'll make changes unless they're forced. And I think also the Leinster guys, as much as they might be under pressure externally, I think they are experienced enough, have won enough to know that they will do what's good for them, and what's good for them is probably backing the youngster. I just think everybody has the ebbs and flows in their career. We forget that just 2 years ago he was running out for the Irish under 20s. So it's a guy who's learning his craft and his trade. And Leinster, which looks like an organization that's thinking long term, why would you deny a player, a 20, 22-year-old, the opportunity to work his way through a final like this and know that 2, 3, 4 years from now he can go back onto this experience? So I highly doubt that they would make that change. I think they'll back him, and I think he just might come right anyway.
Speaking of individuals, the other one I wanted to ask you about was Cameron Hanekum. Obviously, a huge factor for the Bulls, the next generation player of URC, a huge impact for a guy so young and a guy who plays at 100 miles an hour the whole time. But the one thing I think the Bulls might miss is that Jake actually mentioned it when I spoke to him last week ahead of your game. He said that game that you guys played at Loftus where you won. He said there was a couple of times that you guys got some reward of up and unders. I think he scored 2 tries off the up and unders. That he would have been in positions to cover that gap, and it makes me wonder if he's so influential on defense, the fact that he gets around the field so much and does so much for the Bulls, how much of a loss that's going to be for them in terms of not having him there.
Yeah, I think it's a big loss, Brendan, because I mean, even when we played them, we just do like an individual review of him alone. So we create a player profile, we look at his strengths, his weaknesses. He's that good. You in a playoff game like that, you need a guy who can out of nothing create something, whether it's a breakdown steal that gets you 3 points or releases defensive pressure or a break on the back of the scrum. He beats somebody, gets over the line. So because he's got such X factor, and he's probably the new age loose forward, he's strong enough. He's a line out option at the back, but he's just so explosive. He could be a center. He's explosive as a center. So I think he'll definitely be missed because it's moments. When I was reviewing our game, the Bulls literally scored 3 tries without one ruck. So they had 3 moments and capitalized on each moment. And those moments had special players. So there was Ambrose Papier, 2 of the 3 moments. Cameron could have easily been one of those 3 moments. So I think you miss a moment person like that in a playoff match like this.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, I'm going to ask you now for a prediction, but is there anything else you want to mention about the game before we get to that point?
Predictions probably premature because I'm still healing myself. So I think that's a bit premature. But what I would say is,
Well, let's put it this
I
way.
would, yes.
Let's put it this way. What do the Bulls have to do to get the win, and what does Leinster have to do to get the win? That's probably an easier way and a more neutral way of giving you a chance to say it.
I love that. I love that. You've taken me out of my coward state. So I would say like any test match. So let's put it this way. I would say to figure out early what sort of possession Leinster want to give the Bulls. That's what I'm excited for. I'm excited to see if they kick out against them, and if they kick out, what the plan is for contesting lineouts. Because I think if you can take set piece away from any team, especially in a final, you can do quite a bit of damage to their attacking flow. And I think if you can look at Leinster, they're like on the edge with the way they're contesting. So it might be give the Bulls line out, but let's contest that line out, which will be like 50% of the Bulls' power away if the line out can be out the way.
Mm.
Then the other massive factor is the scrum, obviously. I think even if you looked at that Stormers quarterfinal against Glasgow away, because the Stormers scrum worked, it's the one area that almost kept them in the game. And similar here, if the Bulls scrum is dominant, it makes a massive difference. It's a kick 40 meters downfield, those 3 points, and you go back and you receive a kickoff. So I think the scrum will be big, the line out and the source of attack that either side gets will be big. And then I guess for the Bulls, then is also for them to decide what sort of source of possession they want to give to Leinster. Because if you give them lineouts, they're an incredibly good mapping team. So they really work out plays for the specific opposition, and you can look at it. It's like they're like scientists, the Irish players. They study things and they're really
Mm.
quite particular. So you give them that option. Or if you don't, and you go into a more contestable game, you got to figure out, are you going to win high balls against James Lowe and their back three? And if they do, if they win those high balls and you give them possession in your half, is your phase attack good enough to stop their phase? I mean, is your phase defense good enough to stop their phase attack? So I think in summary, Brendan, I'll say set piece and source of possession will be the two things that determine who probably wins that game on Saturday.
Oh, that's. I think I'm sure with the South African hat on, you probably want the Bulls to win, even though you're hurting still. But I won't. I won't press you on that. Yeah, it's been a great chat, Jay, and thank you. I think there's a lot of insight here as well. I'm excited about the game. I must admit. I think the Bulls got a real chance. I don't think they're favourites. I think they're going to have to play out of their skins to beat Leinster there, but. Any team who wants to win in Dublin is going to have to play out their skin. So that's just how tough Leinster always make it for them. So I'm really looking forward to the final. So I hope you are as
Yeah,
well.
I agree with you. Firstly, thanks for having me, Bren. I appreciate that. And I agree with you fully. I'm just thinking about when we won that semi-final back then, 2022, the game was still alive up until the last play. So I agree with you that I think the Bulls definitely have an opportunity and a chance to win it, but it's definitely literally going to take all 80 minutes for them to get over the line. It's not going to be a 32-12 game. It's one of those
Yeah.
18-21 sort of games if they do get over the line.
One of those where the defense is going to make a huge difference in those last 5 minutes. Hopefully the Bulls are ahead, and hopefully they can hold out. But it's going to be a huge game. Joey, we'll get you back. I want to get you back for the Springboks when the Boks are playing. Get you some insight there as well. And yeah, thanks for joining me. And it was really good. And enjoy the final.
What a joy. Thanks for the conversation. Thanks, Brendan.
Cheers.